This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, Cliff Yates. You are in the right place. You're right where you need to be. Listening, hopefully you're watching also on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Follow what we're doing here. We're creating a community of progress. And that's what life fulfillment is about, right? Making progress towards a worthy goal. But what we're going to talk about today, obviously I'm excited about it because a shift in mindset that you may have to take. This shift in mindset is going to make the difference in your life for the rest of your life. I mean, this is big stuff. I've been studying, I've been implementing it for 35 years, but I think I'm ready to go to the next level and take you with me. And really, I was talking to a friend of mine. We were kind of masterminding a couple of weeks ago about, hey, listen, let's be definitive. Let's have a dominating thought in our mind as to what we want. Let's create that image. Let's be imagining and seeing in our mind's eye what we specifically want. The more specific in our image creation that we are, the more that we're going to activate our subconscious mind, because we are going to marry those thoughts with emotion. And that's going to stimulate the subconscious mind to start putting things in motion so that we get what we're after. And we were focusing on what. And we didn't want to shift too quickly to how, because we wanted to be certain about what we wanted. We wanted to know the exact direction that we were heading. We wanted to be very specific on what we were pointing at. Right? If you're pointing your arrow at 3 targets, you're going to hit none of them. So we wanted to be specific as to what. And then we talked about why. Why? Because we knew how would come back later. We go how too quick, and guess what? We won't be so certain because our mind's going to say, I don't know how. We don't know how yet. And then that can really discourage you when you realize, then the story you tell yourself might be, I'm not enough. It's not the right time. The story you tell yourself is really the most important thing. Can we change our story? Absolutely. And we're going to talk about how to do that. And Tony Robbins was talking about that today with Lewis Howes. I follow both of those gentlemen and their channels. And I took 9 pages of notes today because I want to share the information that I studied, received, and I want to pound that into my own brain, all the lessons that I learned today. And I can do that in a couple different ways. One, take notes, write it down, right? I heard it, I saw it, I wrote it down, I'm seeing it again. And now guess what? I'm going to be saying it again and hearing it again because I'm sharing it with you. And when you're going to learn something to share it, you pay more attention to something. And that's so true. And Tony talked about changing the story. He kind of went into the what I talked about before. We focusing on the what, but what he was saying is to change our story, we really need to start. And this is really the crux of this episode. This is the foundation, right? This is going to be the small hinge that turns a giant door that opens up your world. And that is, we have to start with our mental and emotional state. We want to be in such an emotional and mental state that we are unstoppable before we come up with a strategy or a how to go after what we want. That way we're going to be certain. Certainty. We have a need in this world to be certain and to be uncertain. We need surprises. We can't have things too mundane. We don't like that. We like contrast. So we like a little difference. We like 31 flavors. Makes our life rich. But we definitely seek certainty. And, people get worried now. I wonder what's going to happen with AI. I'm going to lose my job. They feel uncertain. And now they're concerned and they're scared. And any decisions that you make out of fear generally is going to be the wrong decision. And so people want certainty. Well, guess what? There really is no certainty. It's really fabricated in our mind. We can get hit by a bus tomorrow. There's no certainty in the outside world, really. But listen, internally, our internal world, our internal story, we can be certain. And we can be so solid in our mental and emotional state. And we can be in such control of that we are going to be an unstoppable force. And that feeling of certainty is really going to, it's going to be killing off limiting beliefs, which is important. But you know what, as we get into this, it's a little more complicated than that. But definitely we need to work on starting with our mental and emotional states. Then we can switch the story, right? Because if our story says, I'm a loser, we're going to find ways to lose. So we're going to be certain that we can change that story, and we're going to go forward with an unstoppable force, because we're going to work first on changing, controlling, and having an unstoppable mental and emotional state of positivity, relentlessness, perseverance. You and I, we got this. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, let's go into a few of the notes that I took today. One of them was about changing our state. If we change it, we can change the story, right? We have to do the things we need to do, but we need to do them in the correct order. That's really another key point, right? I can give you all the numbers to my cell phone. If you don't put them in the right order, in the right sequence, you can't call me. You'll never reach me, right? Things have to be done in the right sequence. And so when we're going to change our states, change our story, and change what we create, manifest, and bring about and become in our life, we have to do things in a certain sequence. And so the phone number, it's also like not only just like a phone number. If you don't put it in the right order, you can't make the call. You're not going to get to that person. And it's just like a recipe for a dish. You can take all the ingredients. They're listed right here. Here's all the ingredients. And you throw them all into a bowl. There it is. Chicken picante. No, it's not chicken picante, because you got to do it in the right order, in the right way, in the right amount for specific reasons. People have already done it. They're the who. They have created this already. They know how to do it. They have the recipe. Follow the recipe. Just like when you decide what you want. I want this house on the beach. Why? Because it's going to create wonderful memories with my family that I'm going to leave as a legacy to my children and my grandchildren. That is the why. Now, the who. That is the person with the recipe. The who. Who's already done this? Who's already bought a house on the beach? What did they do for a living? How did they buy it? What kind of money did they need? What's going on? I need to know who did this so that I can model how from them. They've already made the mistakes. They've done something right. They've already done what I want to get done. And that's fun. I didn't know I was going to make a rhyme tonight. That's off the top of my head, and that's free for you, everybody. Doing the right thing, the right way, for the right reason, but in the right order. More important than anything, that we do things in the right order. We want to figure out our why before we get to the how, or a strategy before we jump to a strategy. I want to learn the strategy to do this. Hold on. Before you learn the strategy, let's work on your mental and emotional mindset. Now, when I get you into an unstoppable mindset, then we can adopt a strategy with certainty that it's going to work, right? You'll find people that get discouraged and they quit. I already tried that 100 times. 100 times? Tell me the 100 times. Tell me 2 of those times. Yeah, it hasn't been 100 times. Keep going. Do not stop. You know how they say, if you're going through hell, keep going. That became a saying for a reason. If you're going through hell, keep going, because you're going to go through it. You're going to come out on the other side, because you recognize patterns. That's how smart you are. You recognize patterns. I get so excited when we realize, look what happened when our ancestors recognized patterns, right? They plant seeds in the winter, they starve to death. They plant seeds in the spring, harvest in the fall. They have food to get through the winter. They thrive, they live, they expand. Timing, seasons, recognizing the patterns. If you're in a winter, keep going, because spring always follows winter. You're in a summer, sunny, beautiful. Keep gathering for the winter, because you recognize patterns. And when you recognize patterns, you don't react, you anticipate. Anticipation is power. Hey, listen, we're talking about a lot of good things. Well, all we have to do is adopt them. I want you to implement them. You might want to take some notes today. You might want to replay this and hear it again because it's going to help you. I know I'm going to hear it again because I'm going to edit the video and I'm going to hear it again. We can change our story, right? We can, because if we don't pay attention to the why instead of the how, it's too easy for us to become uncertain. It's going to be too easy for us to be discouraged and or quit. And then we're going to have the story that I'm not enough. I can't. I already tried. That is going to be the dominant thoughts in our heads, and that is not going to serve us well at all. So we have to start with mental and emotional state. It is a belief system, but it's more complicated. It's state mastery. When we can master our states, oh my goodness, we become very powerful. Pick your beliefs based on your state. State is the controlling factor in everything. You want a great relationship? Listen, make sure that you're in the right state, that you're not afraid, that you get to a place where I need to get to, and I'm trying to get to right now, right? You want a great relationship, you want to get a wife, a husband, get married. You want to be in a state where you're not in a state of fear. No matter what happens, I'm okay with being alone, and it'll be okay. I'll still be able to be great alone. My identity by myself is still okay. That's not a failure that I'm by myself. And now when you're in this state that you're okay, imagine what you're going to attract with that mental and emotional state. Your desire is going to change your story when you're in that positive mental and emotional state. If we're not afraid, then we can have certainty that we're going to be okay, no matter what happens. Fear almost always makes you make the wrong choice. You know, you study, you immerse yourself in something. You want to be a parent, you study parenting, child development, what can happen. You study it from different angles, from different points of view, and divorce, drug use, antipsychotics, antidepressants. You study, you learn, and then you can be certain when you see patterns show up. You're going to recognize them because you've taken in the information. You've educated yourself, and now it's not going to be a surprise when you recognize things that show up that are patterns that now you can anticipate what is going to happen. Now, whether you're in life, well, you're in life, obviously. Let's talk about life and business. Especially in a business. Each stage of a business has predictable challenges and opportunities. The more you can know the pattern in advance, you can anticipate, and anticipation is power. Reaction puts you in fear. We don't want to be in reaction. We want to anticipate and respond. Just like when we're in a relationship with your husband, your wife, mother, father, son, daughter, brother, sister, right? Some things, when they say things, there's a chance that we could react. What we need to do, take that pause, that breath, and then respond. Choose how we're going to respond instead of just reacting. And then our communication is going to be at the next level. Anticipation is power. That's one of the most valuable things that I learned when I was watching the podcast today. And then I'm telling you on my podcast because I'm sharing this information. Sharing is caring, everybody. Listen, train yourself to have internal certainty. People worry. I talked about earlier about people worrying what's going to happen. I'm going to lose my job. AI is coming, going to destroy me. AI won't destroy you. They won't destroy your business. AI can't. A person using AI could because it's just a tool. It's just a thinking partner. Nothing external is ever certain. You can get hit by a bus tomorrow, but internally, we can have such resolve and certainty. Everything's going to be possible. Limiting beliefs are going to fall to the wayside because we're going to be operating out of knowledge applied instead of fear. Always continue to prepare for winter. We know how the seasons go. Each follows each. No one in this life escapes massive stress. I talked about this before, right? I talked about how we're all, you know what? We're all blown by the same wind, the wind of despair and challenge, opportunity. And it's all how we set our sail. We are all being blown by the same wind. No one escapes massive stress. And what does that look like? It looks like your house burning down. It looks like you getting fired. It looks like someone dying in your family. It looks like someone dying who's close to you. It looks like you live in LA and your house burned to the ground. Or you got robbed. Someone steals from you, from your business. We're all going to feel that. Or someone in our family is going to feel it. We're going to be close to it. None of us are immune from massive stress in our life. If it hasn't already, it's coming. It's going to hit close. How close? We don't know. How much? We don't know. But nobody is immune from that. When that happens, when that massive stress happens, we either use that stress or that stress uses us. When we're hit with massive stress, the stress either uses us or we use the stress. I can't stress that enough. Listen, that's an important lesson to learn. That's why we can go forward with anticipation and not fear. Now, you've heard it said, right? If you're going through hell, keep going. I talked about this earlier. If you keep going, 3 things happen. Number 1, you discover how strong you are. First thing you discover is how strong you are. And the only way you're going to find that is to push through it. Each time you do it, you're going to get stronger. You're going to get stronger. Number 2, you find out who your real friends are. You're going to find out who your real friends are. When hell breaks loose, only real friends hang around. Everybody else disappears. Facebook friends, you name it, they disappear. Real friends will still be there. When all hell breaks loose, no one sticks around except for your real friends. Number 3, it gives you a form of immunity to future stress. When you've gone through this massive stress that hits you, you're going to find out how strong you are. You're going to find out who your real friends are. And then it's going to give you a kind of immunity to future stress. Because look what you've already been through. You put the reps in. You've come through the other side. You have experience coming through the other side. Tony he told a real heartwarming story about a friend of his who was a fighter pilot. Big, strong, strapping young man, looked like he was right out of central casting for Top Gun. And then he got shot down in Vietnam, taken captive, and he was in a Vietnamese prison for 7 years. 7 years, they tortured him, beat him. They handcuffed him to the floor, upside down, so that when he peed, the acid ran down his back. And then later, decades later, he's going through some business troubles. The IRS was after him. They were giving him a hard time. They were hitting him from all sides. It took him 3 years to get his money back. It was just brutal what they were doing to him, Tony said. So Tony asked him, how do you get through this? How do you deal with that? Tony, 7 years in a Vietnamese prison camp? You think the IRS can get to me? Not a chance. Gives you immunity to future stress. From what he's been through, that was nothing. IRS. My ass. Going through that massive stress, finding out how strong we are, finding out who our true friends are, that's a great value in that process. If you make it through those steps, Now your internal certainty inside you just builds, builds, and builds. And then your approach to life takes on a whole new meaning because of what you've been through, what you've gone through. You look at life in a totally different way. And I hope you do that starting today if you haven't already. Life takes on a different experience when you've gone through massive stress and you take the steps to keep going through. Some part of you goes, God's guiding me. In my case, it's God's guiding me. Or maybe in your case, it'll be, I've always found a way in the past. I'm going to find a way in the future. I always say it's God guiding me because I've always felt that. I later learned in my Christian walk, how, we're implanted with the knowledge of God. Because I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up knowing Jesus. No one even approached me about Jesus Christ or anything about him. No one really ministered to me. Nobody did. Not nobody really did. Nobody did at all. But for some reason, why in my heart, so I already knew. I knew there was a God. Things would happen and I knew, oh my God, God is with me. Didn't learn about God. I hadn't been in the book. Hadn't read the Bible. Didn't know anything. Didn't know what it meant to be a Christian except Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. Knew none of that. I knew in my heart and soul that God existed. It was pre-planted right here in my heart. And as you later learn in the Bible, the new covenant is we don't need the written law anymore because God has written our morality and the knowledge of right and wrong on our hearts. And it's in here. It's internal. So God has been guiding me for a long time in a lot of different ways. And in my police career, 35 years, I look back and I talk about it in my book, Deputy, a couple times. But for the grace of God go I would have been killed. Like this person was killed, or that person was killed, or the time the person was waiting outside the Star Diner in Avon, New York to kill me with a shotgun. He fell asleep. I was able to walk out, and I drove away. Later, arresting him again for the second time that evening, finding the loaded shotgun underneath the seat of the truck. Later, he told a fellow inmate in the jail, I had gone to that diner to shoot Deputy Yates when he came out, but he was in there for so long I fell asleep in my truck. Well, he told somebody that's what he was going to do. He was outside the diner after I had arrested him, and he'd been released by the judge. I stopped him later. He had the loaded shotgun underneath the front seat. But for the grace of God go I. There was another incident in Livingston County, upstate New York. I was bringing back a prisoner from Rochester, New York, screaming down Route 15, going back towards the jail in Geneseo, New York. And then I saw this weird-looking guy. Even the prisoner I had says, that guy was a weird-looking dude. And it turned out he had a mongoloid face. And I jumped on the brakes because I was going to stop and check him out. I was going to at least stop. Who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you out in the middle of nowhere hitchhiking? And I'm sure I would have used poor tactics, as I did a lot of times back in those days. Probably would have just put down my window and talked to him through the window. Found out later the next day, because I had mentioned to the desk personnel, man, we passed a guy. This guy was weird. And I described him. Well, somebody told the detectives the next day because they picked up this guy. He had a pistol in his pocket with one live round in the chamber. He had shot a woman just outside of Rochester, Henrietta, New York. And that bullet could have been for me had I made that stop and checked him out, approached him in any way. But for the grace of God go I can think of about in LA County Sheriff, probably 5-6 incidents where that was also the case. I have double-digit deputy sheriff friends of mine that I've ridden with in the same sheriff's car who died in the line of duty. But for the grace of God go I. So I have an internal knowledge of God, and it's been backed up and proven to me now that I've been in the Word, read the Bible, and study each and every day. And I have a direct relationship with God through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So I know that I'm going to be fine because God is with me at all times. But maybe you're going to have a certainty within you, and I hope it's that it's God and that you've accepted Jesus Christ. Or maybe it'll just be the knowledge The internal certainty that you know, I've been okay in the past, I've made it through in the past, I'll find a way to do it again in the future. And that's powerful stuff. And I love, I met Tony Robbins. I've been to 2 of his live seminars, and, I lived in Laverne, California, which is adjacent to Glendora, California, where Tony Robbins grew up. And one of my deputy sheriff friends actually went to high school with Tony. And so I can tell you he's the real deal. I have met him in person at Universal City Walk. And like I said, I've been to two of his seminars. Go check him out. He is the real deal. And he just did an interview, the one I took the notes from on Lewis Howe's show. And he really went into his background and growing up and really what formed him to doing what he's doing today, that he's been doing for 49 years, I believe. So powerful stuff, guys and gals. But Tony talked about a speech that his guidance counselor made him learn and give called The Will to Win. And it inspired him to go down to a bookstore to search for more. He was fired up. And he read a book that I've read. I've got to start rereading this book. It's called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. Read that book. Get it. Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. It shaped a lot of the way Tony believes and runs his mind, his brain, his mental and emotional states. A lot of times we do things out of anger. I did things out of anger, frustration, right? And that will fuel the hell out of you. Anger will, but anger only lasts so long. Anger will get us moving in the right direction. Anger can give us enough energy to get moving in the right direction, to taking the right steps, but it will fade away. We can't lay on top of anger for too long. It's going to fade, and we need to switch to a way of believing, not from a power of anger, but from a power of will and purpose. We need pull power, not push power. We got to create in our own head absolute certainty that this is who I am. This is my identity. Identity is the strongest force you have. Strongest force in any personality is to stay consistent with your identity. Who are you? Who am I? Be certain in your identity. Be consistent with your identity. If you think you're a loser, you're going to find a way to lose. You're no loser, and that's not your identity. And don't you dare speak it out loud. Identity is the force that controls you. When you enhance your identity, you enhance your whole life. An identity is like a thermostat, right? How we think of ourselves, the story we're telling ourselves, the story we're in. Our identity is like a thermostat, 68. Let's say we're set at 68 in our head, in our brain, in our mental and emotional state, we're at 68. You know what? If we get too low, we get down to 60. Something kicks in. We kick in and we get moving. We start taking action. We get going. We get after it again. Then we get up to 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. And something says, what are you doing up here? You're not up here. You're not a 90. You're a 68. And then we start backing off. We start doing things to get ourselves to shut back down. The AC of our life kicks in to bring us back down to our comfort zone of 68. No, you are 75, 80, 85, 90. Get out of that 68 identity. Start changing it with your mental and emotional state. Your identity is your superpower. You can change it. You can change your direction right now. I'm getting excited and I'm speaking with certainty. I've put all these principles and values into action over the past 35 years, and it's been nothing but greatness that have followed. If you haven't already, leave a comment. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you got to be part of this community of progress. We are a force to be reckoned with, everybody. Know your identity, who you are. You want a cigarette? Somebody asked me if I wanted a cigarette. I'd say no. I wouldn't say what brand. No, because I'm not a smoker. I'm not one of those. Know for certain what your identity is. Identity belief is so powerful. Identity belief is the controlling force of your life. Proximity is power. Tony and Lewis Howes, they were actually doing their interview for their podcast on a $177 million mansion in Bel Air, which is adjacent to Beverly Hills. Tony's friend, who's an architect, when he builds these palatial mansions, he always has Tony, he kind of forced him into, just, I want you to spend 2 weeks at this place. I want you to experience this place for 2 weeks. And he used to fight it and say, no, we're set, what we're doing. Now Tony does it. He brings the family, the kids, right? And they create moments and memories in these places. And so they were in this place. And the example Tony was giving was, proximity is power. Proximity around where you want to go, who you want to become. Be around those people, those powerful people. Your environment is important. Proximity is important. Your geography is important. Your environment is important. You want to be around those people. You want to be in that business. You want to live in that place. Visit that place. Be around those houses and homes and those locations you want to live. Be in proximity. Get there. Be there. Use all your senses to implant the importance, the emotion, the meaning in your head so that it is kickstarting your subconscious mind. This is important. All right. This has deep meaning. I'm going to start getting after it right now. The image, the dominating thought in your mind is going to be so clear, concise, certain, constant. Take a picture. Make a vision board. Feel the sand on your feet. Hear the wind bouncing off the ocean waves, hitting your face. Feel it. Hear it. Smell it. Smell those smells. I just heard the ocean right now. Get that sound in your head. Repeat it. Record it. Go to sleep with it at night. In your head, you're actually hearing the ocean where you're going to live. How powerful do you think that is? It's damn powerful to get those images, those thoughts, those smells, those sights into your head with such a strong emotional meaning. Your subconscious cannot refuse to get going after your dreams, your aspirations. It's going to work out. Believe me, you can be certain of that. And that's powerful stuff. Identity belief is so important. Proximity, that is power. Talked about that already. Listen, what we want to do is we want to, Jim Rohn, and I met Jim Rohn, right? I went to a seminar by Jim Rohn back in the early 90s. That was the first place Tony Robbins worked, and he worked around Jim Rohn, and he was with him, right, in proximity. And he would ask Jim, how come that person's a nice person. They're a teacher. They make pennies. This person, they're a nice person. They make billions. What is fair? What is justice here? This person's just as nice and they make pennies. This person, they make billions. And Jim said, Tony, these people are all good people. They're great people. You know what? They're all equal in God's eyes. But they're not equal in the marketplace. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. You have to just keep finding a way to bring more value to what people need. Not the value you want to give, but the value they need. Find a way to deliver that value to people in a way that they could never have imagined. And then you're going to have a raving fan. Tony says, I do this with all my companies because I want raving fans. Satisfied customers will go away. But raving fans, they'll hang around. Tony says when people get done with his seminar, and his seminars go 12, 13 hours a day for the whole weekend. When people leave his seminar, they don't say, that was good. They say, that was life-changing. That was fantastic. My life will never be the same again. This was life-changing experience. Nothing will ever be the same in my life. That's how they leave Tony's seminar. That's why they go back again. That's why they go back to Date with Destiny, another one, or Business Mastery. He has tiered programs that you and I can both afford because we can't afford not to. Stanford actually went and did a study with Tony Robbins because they had two professors who were depressed. They went to a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny seminar. They came back, got rid of their medications, and they were no longer depressed. They had no more symptoms of depression. So Stanford, during COVID, approached Tony about doing a study. There's only one other study that was successful. Johns Hopkins did a study, and it was successful because they used psilocybin, basically magic mushrooms, and cognitive behavioral therapy. Combined the two, 30 days. At the end, 57% people improved or had no symptoms of depression. And that was the most successful study that there ever had been. And Tony Robbins says, we can beat that. Oh, I can beat that. Stand by. You got the numbers? I want to know the data. I want to know the metadata on these studies and on depression. And the metadata says 60% of people that seek psychiatric help and or therapy behavior in their depression, 60% improve. 40% improve 50%. They're only half as depressed. Tony says, I'm going to beat the hell out of those numbers. So Stanford set up a study similar to the Johns Hopkins, where they had a group, the Johns Hopkins group, which was going to be the comparison group to the group that went to, that was going to be the comparison group. The Johns Hopkins study is going to be the comparison group to the group that's going to go through the 6 days Date with Destiny at the Tony Robbins seminar. And at the end of the seminar, the results were this. 6 weeks after the Date with Destiny seminar, 93% of the people had no symptoms whatsoever. 93%. 70% improved. Not to the point where they had no symptoms. They had some. 17% of them came in to the Date with Destiny seminar with suicide ideation. They were constantly thinking about suicide, and a couple of them had attempted. When they left, there wasn't a single person thinking about suicide. And the best statistic of all, Tony said, is 1 year later, with no communication from Tony for the entire year, the average person reduced their negative emotions by 71%. They increased their positive emotions by 52%, and no one was still depressed. Boom. Tony had beat the hell out of those statistics. And that's just so empowering for us because it's at our fingertips. We can adopt these principles and values, these tools where we can focus on our mental and emotional state. We got to be in control of our state at all time. I'm always changing my state, and I'm always talking to you about it. Right? When we want to change our state, we know exactly what we need to do. The first thing we do is that we change our physiology, how we're moving our body. You should know this already. Number 2, we change our focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. Number 3, self-talk, what we're saying to ourselves. We change our internal dialogue, what we're saying to ourselves. And then boom, our state changes. Now, I find it changes for me because I have such momentum in working out for the past 54 years on a regular basis. I've been weight training, and now I combine weight training with stretching, jumping rope, and also with sprinting, and I play tennis. I'm going to be playing tonight, as a matter of fact. And so what happens when you do those things? You have to change your physiology. You change into deep breathing. You're changing what you're focusing on. You have to, and then you're changing what you're saying to yourself. Do those things. Get and habituate those routines of exercise, weight-bearing exercises, and then play at something. I'm playing at tennis. Find something you would like to do, whether it's, organized frisbee, or whether it's stand-up paddleboarding, or, I like tennis, whether it's pickleball, especially, sports like that, racquetball and pickleball, tennis. You've got to be in the moment. I have to be in the now. I can't be time traveling with my mind yesterday, tomorrow, what happened earlier. I got to be in the point. And so the activity keeps me. It keeps me in the presence. And that's a present. To be present is a present to your mental and emotional health. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everybody. It's very, very powerful stuff that could change your life forever. Not temporarily, but forever. And wouldn't that be fantastic? And I know you're already in a great place. And if you are, you can still get to the next level. There's nothing wrong with getting to the next level, with growing. We're either growing or dying. Keep growing. How big does a tree grow? As big as it can. And so we need to grow as big as we can. All right, everybody, you know I love you. If you haven't already, subscribe, share this episode. Please leave me a comment. I thrive on the comments. And listen, I'm still small enough. I can get to every comment and I will respond to you. As you know, I love you and I'll see you in the next episode.